GTA math, what's up? Let's solve an absolute value inequality. So, whenever you're dealing with absolute values, a good way to look at it is you're taking the distance of a number from zero, regardless of direction. And it really just means, it just tells us how far away a number is from zero. Because when you take the absolute value of something, it's always going to be positive. And when we're dealing with inequalities, it's comparing two values, showing if one is less than, greater than, or simply not equal to another value. So in this problem, we have a negative being multiplied to an absolute value, which is a no bueno. We can't have that. So the first thing we're going to do is multiply everything with a negative 1. This is going to give us a positive absolute value. This 8 will become negative. And when you multiply something by a negative number, you change the sign of the inequality, whether it's multiplication or division. So this changes signs, and 0 times negative 1 is going to be 0. So now that we're here, we're going to add this 8 to the other side, because when we're evaluating absolute values, we want the absolute value on one side, and then we want the numbers on one side. So now we're left with this absolute value of u is less than 8. And when we take the absolute value of something, we take the positive and negative of both of them. So on the right, we're going to do positive, on the left, the negative. So we have to find a value that is the absolute value of 8. And what that means is, when we take the absolute value of it, there's going to be a value where u is going to be less than negative 8. And then there's going to be a value where u is greater than 8. And what this means is that when we make a number line like this, we're saying if this is 0, the greatest distance u will be from 0 is either negative 8 or positive 8. But the absolute value of a negative number is always going to be positive. So the total distance from 0 to 8 or 0 to negative 8, regardless of direction, the absolute value of it is going to be 8, as was said earlier in the video, because the absolute value refers to the distance of a number from 0, regardless of direction. In this problem, we're traveling to the left, negative 8 units. And then on this side, we're traveling to the right, positive 8 units. But the absolute value will always be 8. So our answer is going to follow this notation. Finish that. It's going to follow that notation, because we're taking the absolute value of something that's less than or equal to. So our answer is going to look like this. It's going to be negative 8. And since we did flip the sign in the problem, which I forgot to mention, we're going to keep the problem in this direction of less than. We started with greater than, we multiplied by a negative, it flipped the sign, we evaluated the inequality here. So this is the sign we're going to take, which is going to be negative, well, less than, excuse me. We're going to put the u in the middle, and then we're going to have is less than 8. This is our final answer. And if you look at that, it's very similar to this notation, which is what we were striving for. A just represents a number. In this case, we had -8 and 8. So that's all that is. So let's move on to the second problem. This one's a little bit tougher just because with the second problem, we have a negative inside the absolute value. But as we said earlier, when you take the absolute value of positive or negative number, since the definition says distance is always positive, that's not in the definition, but it's a part of it. Even though this is a negative b, the absolute value of it becomes just b. We're going to keep is greater than 4. And since we're dealing with an absolute value, we have to find out what happens to b when it's less than 0 and greater than 4. So the absolute value of a positive 4 is just going to be 4. The absolute value of negative b is just going to be b. So we have to figure out what happens when b is less than -4, or when b is greater than 4. Because in our absolute value, an inequality problem like this one, my English was all messed up on that, excuse me. In this problem, where we actually are dealing with a greater than or equal to inequality, we have to keep this in mind. And I'm going to highlight this in yellow. We have to figure out the value of x when it's less than a number. In this case, we're using -4. And when it's greater than a number, which we're going to use +4. And the same number line we drew up here with the -8, I'm going to draw again over 4 and -4. We're saying, hey, look, this is 0, this is 4, this is -4. You travel this way, you're traveling 4 units total. This way, 4 units total. Even though we're moving into a negative direction, when we go left, the absolute value of -4 is still 4. And then when we travel to the right, the absolute value of 4 is still going to be 4. So this here is actually our final answer for the problem. And once again, it follows the same notation. Once again, everybody, thank you for participating. Thank you for showing up and being a part of this channel. Like mentioned before, the goal is to continuously update content and also share whatever information I know about the subject of math, whatever else I learned in life, put it on canvas. So once again, thank you to everybody who showed up. Let's continue to learn, love, and grow together. I hope everybody's enjoying day, night, whatever it is, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope it's going well. Take care.